Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Carla with Concrete Gardens Homestead, and I thought I would take you all outside today. It is a beautiful Sunday afternoon here in southwest Missouri. It's a little bit windy, as you can tell from my hair. We got about 20-mile-an-hour winds today, so no way I'm going to the lake fishing, so time to do some gardening stuff. So this is our house behind me, and I've got a lot that I'm going to do here in the front of the house this year. So I'm going to just take you around here real quick and show you a few things. And if you're interested in any of these, then please subscribe, because we'll be taking you along on this journey as we build a big hosta bed, transplant in some hostas. They've been in tubs now for about 7 years, but I love hostas. I've had hostas for about 18 years. I know that because I got him when my son was a baby, and he is now 18 and going to be graduating soon from high school. So that's how old these hostas are. But they have been in pots for the last 7 years because we've moved a couple of times. But we are now in a home that we're going to be in for a really long time, at least till we retire. So we're going to get them in the ground and get a big hosta bed going again. So I'm just going to show you some of the things that we're doing. We've been here in this home now for 2 years. And so we didn't put them in the ground last year. We were really busy with just figuring out what we were going to do to garden. And so we spent all the time gardening vegetables and things like that. So this year I've started early, and we're hopefully going to get this hosta bed built by the time the hostas start peaking up, and where I can transplant them very early on before they leaf out. So I'm going to show you that now. I'm just going to switch the camera around, so bear with me. All right, and this is the hosta bed. So this is the road, runs by the front of our house. And then this is our big tree. This is in our yard. And then I'm going to start the hosta bed at the base of the tree there. And you can see I've started to put down cardboard. I've moved some little concrete figures over to hold it down. And mulch. Got lots of mulch going on the cardboard. As we get more boxes and things in, I'm doing more cardboard. Got a 4x4 holding this cardboard down because I need to go get another trailer load of mulch to finish that, but that's going to be wide. We're going to do more cardboard. And then that right over there is a peony bed that was already here. Now, the problem with this peony bed is that these trees have grown so much. There's the other tree that's in our yard. These are my hostas. Oh my, I mentioned them leafing out. Looks like I'm starting to get some leafing out. We've had really warm weather in Missouri that we normally don't have this early on. But this peony bed gets so much shade that these peonies don't flower, they don't bloom when they're supposed to. And so then when they do finally bloom, they only last about 2 days. So I've got to move these peonies to another part of the yard that gets more sun, and then I'll just take over that as well. My whole plan here is not to mow any of this grass up in here. I don't even want to bring the lawnmower over here. So that is the plan. And then all this will be hostas and shade plants. Okay, so I'm just still showing you parts of our front yard. This is the side yard. It's to the left of our house, to our driveway. And this year I'm hoping to just turn this entire area into a flower garden, some type of flower garden. My pile of dirt is here. This is, I'm going to use it and take it over to the hosta bed that I just showed you, just wagon load by wagon load, and fill in that hosta bed once I get some landscaping stones or rocks or whatever we decide to use put around it. I'll be filling it in with dirt so I can plant those hostas. And all that's coming up really quick. So, but this bed right here, and I ran out of landscaping stones. I've got to go get another trailer load of those because I'd like to build it at least 2 high. But I've put in some wood blocks just to hold the dirt and the mulch in. But this bed was really pretty thin when we first moved in. You can see the original right here, if I pan the right way. So that's how wide it was, that board sticking out there, and then that went all the way down. I think that's probably, what, a 2x12. And so we took those out because originally we had put in the landscaping stones where the boards were. And I've planted cannas along this fence here. The first year, well, I had a really dear friend of mine from high school give me the cannas in 2021, in the spring of 2021, right after we moved in. And I planted them, and they reached probably a little over halfway down the fence row here, and they were so beautiful. And I was going to dig them up. She told me, she always digs hers up, puts them in a box, puts them in the garage. But that year, 2021, in November, Left Brain and I both got COVID, and we were so sick for over a month that we did not get any of our outside work done. And so I did not get the cannas dug up. And I was so afraid I'd lost them. But it turned out they survived, and they didn't even get covered with mulch or anything. I mean, they were just right there exposed to the winter. But luckily this fence, I think, protected them from the north. This is facing north right now. And so they were planted on this side of the fence, and I think that protected them a little bit, but they all came back and they lived, and they were really strong last year, and they multiplied. And so then I dug up a few, and I had enough to go all the way down there to the end, to the corner with cannas, and they were so gorgeous. So then this year, fast forward to January of 2023, our dear Grandma Shoddy moved from her farm that she's been on for a long time in a rural county, and she had all these irises, and so she has now moved to an apartment just a little bit easier to take care of, and she offered these irises to me, and I love irises. And so Bethany and I went out and dug up 3 boxfuls of irises out of Grandma Shoddy's yard, and we came home, and in January I took all those stones and moved them, and we widened this bed. I've got cardboard down. Thankfully, Left Brain gets a lot of deliveries from Amazon, so I had a lot of cardboard, and I put all the cardboard down and covered the cardboard with a whole bunch of mulch and then dirt, and then we planted the irises. This did take us 2 full weekends to do, and then we put mulch over them. Oh, and I did mulch my cannas in this year in November of 2022. I put a nice thick layer of mulch over them, probably a good 2 to 3 inches of mulch over the cannas, just to provide them some extra protection. But I really believe this past winter was much milder than the winter that started in 2021. So they survived the worst winter for sure. But anyway, the irises are looking good. Now, they were green like this when we planted them, so they haven't grown or anything. We've had some pretty days, but they haven't grown too much. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this side yard. I'm thinking about putting gravel in, like river rock gravel, and making various flower beds. I'm going to bring a beehive in, and I think put right around in here so that I'll have bees for our garden. We have a beehive at my brother's. Ben used to raise bees early on in high school when he was in FFA. So we still have a big beehive at my brother's house. And so we're talking about bringing that here and putting it in this side yard once we get the gravel and everything in. So I don't think we'll bring the beehive this year, but probably definitely by next year, next spring, we'll have a beehive in this side yard. But I also got some Easter lilies and some jonquils from Grandma Shoddy. And the jonquils, look at that. I didn't think they would bloom this year, but look at that. They've got some blooms, and I would say they're going to bloom within the next week or two. And then over here where all these, where the metal posts are, that's from a shelving unit that we used to have in a garage at another house. So I use it as stakes, but those are peonies. And those peonies Grandma Shotty gave me. But the nice thing is they came from my mom and dad's yard when they had their home before my mom passed away. So these peonies, hopefully they've made it through the winter and they come up and bloom this year. She actually gave me the peonies last year. So they were planted last spring and they didn't bloom last year. So maybe they'll come back this year and bloom. It'd be so nice if they would. They're supposed to be red ones and white ones. And then of course I showed you the peony bed. I'm going to move more peonies over here. The ones that are here at this house in that big bed I showed you just a little bit ago, those are a bright, bright pink peony. So I think they'll be pretty. But anyway, this is a work in process over here. So just wanted to show you this, and hopefully these irises just continue to thrive. I'm going to put some nice fertilizer and stuff on them to give them some food, and hopefully all will go well. I do think some of these maybe have grown a little bit. I don't remember them being that tall for that. But anyway, we'll check back in and we'll keep you posted as we make changes here on this side yard and build more flower beds. Welcome to the backyard. Here we are. And this is our 3 long raised beds of built out of mortar. This is how we got our name, Concrete Gardens. So this was just a huge process, a huge deal last year. I just wanted some raised beds because I planted tomatoes in a wooden raised bed that was already here when we bought the house 2 years ago. We found out from the neighbors, the gentleman that lived here, he was well into his 80s, but he was a master gardener, and so he had some gardens back here with great dirt and compost, all pH balanced, and I just cleaned them all out. He hadn't gardened for a few years because the raised bed that was up against the fence back there in the back, it had like old grass. We moved in January, so of course the grass was dead, but you could tell that it had gotten to be about 3 feet tall, probably at least, because he obviously didn't lift up his lawnmower and put it in the raised bed to mow, and he probably couldn't weed eat. I know how he feels. I had to get a battery operated weed eater this past summer because I just could not swing around the gas powered weed eater anymore. So anyway, I totally understand, but I cleaned all that out and I planted tomatoes the first summer that we lived here. And after I cleaned it all out and dug up what I thought was all the roots and everything from the weeds and the grass that was back there, I tilled it. I borrowed my brother's tiller and I brought it over here and I tilled it probably a good 4 times over a week and a half period of time. And I thought that it was good. It was beautiful soil, not a weed in sight, not a blade of grass in sight. I planted my tomatoes in there in May, and oh my goodness, they grew and everything was good, and except by June, the weeds and the grass started growing. It started overtaking my tomatoes. I was spending 6 hours a week minimum, some weeks 8 hours, pulling weeds and grass out of my tomatoes that were planted in that raised bed back there along that fence. And I told Left Brain, I said, I'm getting too old for this. I cannot do this anymore, and I'm gonna have to build raised beds back. I'm gonna have to build new raised beds with new dirt, and I would like to just build raised beds over this whole side of this yard back here. I don't even want to have to mow near the garden. I don't want grass flying up and starting new grass and all that. So he said, okay, we can do that. Well, I was just talking about just raised beds, inexpensive, just out of lumber, but no. Left Brain got on YouTube and started searching, and he found an engineer type guy that was building his raised beds out of mortar. Now, concrete would work, and it is a lot less expensive, but concrete is very heavy where mortar is much lighter. So we went with mortar just because of our age and, you know, having to haul these around and build the beds. We decided to spend the extra and buy mortar. And but we started building in early March of last year on the warm days, on the pretty days, and for whatever reason it just was not working. And Left Brain built the forms for these out of wood and everything. We did everything ourselves. Left Brain pays for nothing to be done, so we do it all ourselves, always have. And but for whatever reason, we just could not get the formula dialed in. Part of it was the weather. We didn't realize that really it needed to be like 70 degrees for this to cure properly. And I suppose it would cure properly over an extended period of time, but we didn't know. You know, we're not concrete masons or anything like that, so we didn't know what we were doing with that. And by April 1st, I mean, he had contacted the makers of the mortar and gotten some better instructions. And also by April 1st, it had warmed up quite a bit here in Missouri to where it was most days. You know, a lot of the days or the weekends, it was getting up to 65, 70 degrees, which made it a lot better for the curing process of these slabs. But man, it was a rough start. So we thought we would have all these built and ready to go in a month, and literally we didn't even get our first solid slab of mortar over there that you see. We didn't get our first one completely done until about the end of April. So that's just how long it took. I think this bed over here, and I'll walk over here so you can see it. This was the first one that we built just past the storm shelter there, and you can see these slabs over here are quite a bit longer than the ones on the 3 raised beds, and that's because originally we had 48-inch slabs or forms for these slabs, and we didn't get this bed built. I think my pictures show it being built and me trying to plant some snap peas in it on May 1st of last year. That's how long it took. But we didn't like them this long because it wasn't using, we had to use like 1.5 bags of mortar to do 2 of the forms. We had 2 wooden forms, and it was taking like 1.5 or 1 3/4 bags of mortar, and it just wasn't working out right. So Left Brain got on his computer program, his CAD program, and figured out we needed to go down to, I'd have to think, but over here you'll see they're shorter. They're either 44 inches. I think they're 44 inches. So anyway, we went with 44 inches because the mass for 44 inches, we built 2, and it used 1 bag of mortar mix. So that was good, and that's what we went with from there. It was just easier to mix that way. And you can see I have a broken one over there. That's my fault, because see that? I got a cherry tomato plant mixed in with my indeterminate tomato plants, and it was, as soon as I realized it was a cherry tomato plant, I of course wanted it out of there, and I dug it out with my long shovel, but I used that slab as a brace, and boy, it snapped that mortar right in 2 as soon as I just put a little bit of pressure on it. I mean, they really are stronger than that. You have to realize I was using it as a lever there, so that was my fault. So the first slab that we make this year, we're going to replace that broken one, and then I don't know what I'll do with that. I'll use it as a stepping stone or something, 2 stepping stones somewhere. But this year we're going to make 3 more beds, and they're going to go up perpendicular to the long ones here. Now they're not going to be as long as these. I think these are 21 or 22 feet long. We're just going to make 4x8 beds and 3 across here. Just 1, 2 would be right here in the middle where where you see the T-post there in the middle. So 2 would be about right here, going toward the bed there, and then 3 over here on the edge. My whole goal is to not to have to mow over here at all. I mean, I don't mind mowing, but it just takes time. And besides, you can't eat grass, right? Unless you're a cow or horse. So if you have more raised beds, you just get to grow more groceries. So, and then this is kind of a mess, but this is my burn pile. Some of that is plants, after the last frost last fall, and I've got tomato plants up there against the fence. I might be able to zoom in on them. You can see them up there, so I'll bring those out here. But we're going to have a mini bonfire here in the backyard, and it won't matter me burning this grass because we're building raised beds over that area anyway. So 3 new raised beds are going in this year. My goal is to have them in by the end of May so that I can plant my summer squash and zucchini, eggplant, all of those. These beds, and I may have one, I don't know, I may also do tomatoes, because these beds, that big one in the back, I'm thinking about putting my snap peas in that bed this year, because it's up a little bit higher, and I'm going to put a cattle panel or some netting or something down the middle of it and just plant them on both sides so they have something to grow on. The square bed over here that I showed you, I'm thinking about adding a bunch of peat moss into that, maybe some cocoa coir, kind of loosening up that dirt quite a bit, making it very loose and light. And I'm thinking about planting carrots. I'm just thinking about planting a full bed of carrots in there, and that's my plan for that bed. So, and then just around the storm shelter, the kids and we built with these landscaping stones just a place to plant flowers, just to bring in pollinators. Didn't really have that many flowers and stuff planted the first year. A lot of our things struggled with getting pollinated, and so this past year we added on to that whole area around the storm shelter on both sides, and it's just going to be full of flowers, everything that bees and butterflies and everything like that, those kind of things that they love. And hopefully we'll bring in a lot more pollinators this year. And then if I can get everything together, we've got a beehive that I had set up at my brother's house that I'm going to move it over to this house now that we have our own home and everything, and we're going to be here for a while. Bringing the bees back to this house, so we'll have a whole hive of bees up front that will also help pollinate. So we're excited about that. We are going to start some things this year like fruit. These daylilies are beautiful, and they were here. I guess they've probably been here for years. I think the couple that owned the house before us maybe had lived here probably 35 years. So I'm not going to dig all of them up, but I'm probably going to dig down to that pole at least right there. And so just a few more. I've already dug some up. You can see them. I've got them sitting in some of my containers there. I'm just going to kind of transplant them up to the front yard, and I'll give some away to friends. But anyway, we're going to put in blackberry bushes here. And I'm going to move them out quite a bit. This is where the 3 new beds are going, so I'm going to move my blackberries out away from that fence. So as they grow, we can still get in between the fence and the blackberry bushes to pick that side. But I'm just going to put a cattle panel up, and I'm going to use these T-posts like what I have there in the garden beds, and I'm just going to attach a cattle panel. And I have 20-foot cattle panels, so that's the length of the blackberry bed that I'm going to start out with for this year. And I know I won't get any blackberries this year, but we're going to get them planted so they can start growing. And it's going to be 20 feet down that fence row there. And then I'm going to leave the daylilies, the rest of them past that point, just because, again, you need things for pollinators to come to attract to. So I'm going to leave as many as I can, but I've got to take out at least a 20-foot swath there of daylilies and put them somewhere else. But that's some of the plans. As you can see, we've got a lot to do. and kind of a clean slate here for this part of the yard to start in on. So anyway, it's going to be just a wonderful year this year. Lots of improvements back here in the backyard, and lots of added space to grow food. And we're excited about it. And so anyway, I hope you are too. If you're into this kind of thing and you like to see backyards transformed into gardens, this is the time. Go ahead, subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and click on notifications. And as we go through this journey, I'll just bring you along. And when we get to the end of this growing season, sometime around October of this year, this whole backyard will have a totally different look to it. So we're excited about that and what the future brings for this year of gardening. All right, so we'll see you all again soon. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and we'll tune in again here in just a few days. Thank you.